Under Philippine law, marriage is regarded as a permanent and inviolable social institution, protected by the Constitution and governed by the Family Code. Article 1 of the Family Code defines marriage as a special contract of permanent union between a man and a woman for the establishment of a conjugal and family life. Due to its significance, the dissolution of marriage is subject to strict legal scrutiny and can only be granted under exceptional circumstances. The law does not recognize divorce, except for Muslims under Presidential Decree 1083, also known as the Code of Muslim Personal Laws of the Philippines. A key distinction in Philippine family law is between a declaration of nullity of marriage and an annulment. A void marriage is one that is considered non-existent from the beginning due to violations of essential marital requisites, such as psychological incapacity, Article 36, bigamy or polygamy, incestuous marriages, and marriages conducted without a valid marriage license. On the other hand, an annulment applies to voidable marriages where a defect existed at the time of the marriage, but the union was still initially valid. Grounds for annulment include lack of parental consent for individuals between 18 and 21 years old, fraud, force or intimidation, unsound mind, impotence, and an incurable sexually transmitted disease. The grounds for annulment under Article 45 of the Family Code must be proven in court before an annulment can be granted. One of the most common grounds is lack of parental consent, which applies when a party was between 18 and 21 years old and did not obtain the consent of a parent or guardian. This petition must be filed within 5 years of reaching the age of 21. Another ground is insanity, in which the sane spouse, a guardian, or a relative may file for annulment. If the insane spouse later regains sanity, they may also initiate the annulment themselves. Fraud is another valid reason for annulment, particularly when one spouse was deceived about essential facts that would have affected their decision to marry. This includes concealment of pregnancy by another man, sexually transmitted diseases, drug addiction, habitual alcoholism, or homosexuality. The injured party must file within 5 years of discovering the fraud. Similarly, a marriage may be annulled if consent was obtained through force, intimidation, or undue influence, provided that the case is filed within 5 years from the cessation of the coercion. In cases of impotence, a marriage may be annulled if one spouse is physically incapable of consummating the marriage, and this condition appears to be incurable. A petition for annulment must be filed within 5 years of the marriage. Likewise, if a spouse had a serious and incurable sexually transmitted disease at the time of marriage, the other spouse may seek annulment, provided they file within 5 years of the marriage. Annulment is often confused with legal separation, but they have distinct legal effects. Legal separation allows spouses to live apart and separates their property relations, but it does not sever the marital bond, meaning neither party can remarry. In contrast, annulment dissolves the marriage, restoring both parties to their legal status as unmarried individuals, allowing them to remarry after the decree becomes final. A decree of annulment has important legal consequences. Once granted, both parties revert to their unmarried status and regain their rights to enter into a new marriage. However, children conceived or born before the annulment decree remain legitimate, ensuring that their rights to inheritance and support are protected. Additionally, the court oversees the liquidation of the marital property, distributing assets according to the property regime agreed upon at marriage. If there are children involved, the court determines custody, support, and visitation rights, prioritizing the best interests of the children. Meanwhile, legal separation is a legal remedy that allows spouses to live separately and dissolve their property relations while maintaining the validity of their marriage. Unlike annulment or a declaration of nullity, legal separation does not allow either spouse to remarry, as the marital bond remains intact. The process of legal separation is governed by the Family Code of the Philippines, specifically Article 55, which provides an exclusive list of grounds for filing a petition. To file for legal separation, a spouse must prove at least one of the 10 specific grounds provided by law. One of the most serious grounds is repeated physical violence or grossly abusive conduct directed at the petitioner, a common child, or a child of the petitioner. This provision ensures protection from domestic abuse, recognizing that such acts violate a spouse's or child's fundamental rights and well-being. Similarly, a spouse may file for legal separation if subjected to physical violence or moral pressure intended to force them to change their religious or political beliefs. Another ground for legal separation is the attempt to corrupt or induce a spouse or child into prostitution, or the respondent's connivance in such acts. This provision is designed to protect the dignity and welfare of the petitioner and their children from being forced into illicit activities. Additionally, a final judgment sentencing the respondent to imprisonment for more than 6 years can be a basis for legal separation. Even if the convicted spouse is later pardoned, the legal separation case remains valid, as the crime and its consequences have already affected the marriage. Substance abuse is also a recognized ground for legal separation. If a spouse develops drug addiction or habitual alcoholism, it can negatively impact the family's stability and well-being. This ground is often cited in cases where addiction leads to neglect, abuse, or financial difficulties. Additionally, lesbianism or homosexuality of the respondent can serve as a ground for legal separation, particularly if it was concealed at the time of marriage or if the respondent engages in same-sex relationships during the marriage. Contracting a subsequent bigamous marriage, whether in the Philippines or abroad, is another ground for legal separation. Bigamy is illegal under Philippine law, and entering into another marriage without dissolving the first one violates the legal and moral principles of marriage. Similarly, sexual infidelity or perversion is considered a breach of marital fidelity, giving the aggrieved spouse the right to seek legal separation. More severe cases involve attempts on the life of the petitioner. If one spouse attempts to harm or kill the other, this constitutes an extreme violation of trust and safety, warranting legal separation. Lastly, abandonment for more than 1 year without justifiable cause is also a valid ground. If a spouse leaves the other without valid reasons or refuses to fulfill marital obligations, the abandoned spouse may petition for legal separation. While legal separation allows spouses to live apart and divide assets, it does not dissolve the marriage, meaning neither party can remarry. However, it does provide relief by ending conjugal property relations, ensuring financial independence. The court may also grant child custody, spousal support, and visitation rights, depending on the circumstances of the case. Legal separation serves as an option for spouses who cannot continue their marital relationship but are unable to file for annulment or nullity, due to the strict grounds required for those cases.